This says my computer needs to be restarted.
Cancel.
I did. It popped up and it went away. So hopefully it won't create any difficulties. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, Jess, can hear you loud and clear.
And you can see all of our beautiful faces.
I do.
All righty then. Yes. Right.
You all set?
We are all set.
Sorry, I was spacing out.
That's okay.
This is the organizational meeting, Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, 7:30 PM. For the election of new officers for the Oxford Planning Zone Commission. Call to order, we have a roll call.
Peter Brad. Dave Sutter.
John Killen. Echo.
Brett Olbury. Jesse Sharma. Kevin McCary. Steve McCary.
Jessica. No?
Sorry, Dan Warren. Sorry, just.
Okay, sorry, Dan.
Stand for the pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving to section D, election of officers, point of order. Chairman Pro Tem.
Just looking at the agenda, do we have to adopt this agenda? Because it looks like this is a little bit different from the structure that we have for our election of officers in the past. I don't see a nomination for vice chairman included in here, so I'm not sure if there was an amendment to the agenda or if we have to adopt procedures for the agenda.
Up to the floor. I know that Article 11B, nomination and elections, controls, that's Article 11B of the Robert's Rules of Orders. There was a provision for the appointment of chairman pro tem. I don't know if that's in compliance or the other matter. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on it.
I would suggest that the commission appoint a chairman pro tem and then runs the meeting until you elect the chairman. And I think if you wish to elect the vice chairman, you could always add that to your agenda. But 2/3 vote of the commission.
So I'll ask for nominations for the chairman pro temp, which, Councilman correctly, that's to run the election
Until the chairman is.
until.
I nominate John Phil as chairman pro tem.
Second.
Any other nomination? So under the rules of order, I think without a second, then
You elect
Becomes
acclamation.
acclamation. All right, so I will call for nominations moving right along for chairman. This is for chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I nominate Pat Quazzarella for chairman.
I second that, Dan Wall.
Are there any other nominations? Going twice, I hear none. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Acclamation.
Thank you.
Actually,
Your show.
Oh, okay.
My tenure was
3:43, okay.
perfect.
Okay, where are we? Okay,
Second.
okay,
oh, can we have that? I'm sorry, point of order. Regarding the vice chairman, nomination.
okay, state statute and our charter only require a secretary and a chairman. They do not require a vice chairman.
But if we've had a vice chairman in the past, wouldn't we have a discussion about removing that role as opposed to just? Throwing it out there. I was just surprised to see that.
Let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll discuss this. I think my tenure lasts into this particular hearing, but I believe the operative provision of the ordinance is 2B. Not the ordinance of the charter, which says that we may have a vice chairman. So technically, the vice chairman never resigned. It makes it easier all the time. But I think
Okay,
Chairman Sauter's, or Council Commissioner Sauter's question kind of well presented, maybe we should discuss it. Not necessarily me, but.
Hey, Jess,
Go ahead, Dan.
the only comment I wanted to make, John, was that we didn't have a vice chair before yourself, actually. We always just had a chairman and a secretary, like when it was Mr. Luff. It was Mr. Luff and Pat. So I'm just pointing out what we did in the past.
Thanks, Dan. It happened with me, and it does say that we may have one, so it's permissive with the charter. I think probably does require some comment as well.
I'm not playing, I am playing devil's advocate, only to say that the proper, what we've always done in the past, vice chair or not, at the regular, at the 2 years when the selectmen get reelected, at that election, all the officers are voted on again. It doesn't matter if you stay on the board, if you're newly elected, we always have all the election of officers no matter what.
That's a good point. And under the charter, that would be all three. And I don't have a dog in this.
Right,
I don't
yeah.
care one way or the other, but,
No, I'm just saying, just,
yeah,
You know.
so then we may elect a vice chair.
right. So
My
that's up
point
to
in
you
bringing it
guys.
up was not a preference that we have a vice chairman or not have a vice chairman. My preference for bringing it up was that if we had one during the last cycle and then it's suddenly not here, I think it's cleaner to make to say why we're not going, why we're reverting back, or why we're just going back to that particular path. But I think it's just been, because then the question comes up 2 years from now, oh, well, we should have a vice chair, and well, why did we get rid of it last time? There's no record, there's no.
Right, no,
come back. So it
no, I
just
get
makes
it.
it cleaner to do it that way. So that's why I wanted to throw it out there.
is there anyone else with comment?
Yeah, this is Dan again. Like I pointed out, we used to just have a chair and a secretary, and whenever the chair was not available, the secretary would be the acting chair. So it's not like it's something, it was actually new to have a vice chair is what I'm saying. So it's nothing we did in the past.
We've had other vice chairs before that, Dan. I have to disagree with you. Pat also.
Excuse me, I've been on the board 8 years, we always had a vice chair, except when Jeff was on, and that was just for 1 year. So we always had a vice chair.
Arnie Arnie was a vice chair.
Arnie was the vice chair before that, and Jeff was the vice chair before that.
If I can comment, I would think that we could, at any time, add a vice chair, if we, feel that it's necessary, At this moment, I don't think, personally, think we just follow the charter and go on from there. But that's,
I would like to get the commission complete tonight. So if we're going to get the vice chair, nominate one. We would have. I don't want the board to look short, I mean, we have a vice chair, now we don't have one, so.
anybody else, any more input?
No, I mean, you could, theoretically, you could open it up to nomination for a vice chair, that it goes to vote, and if there's one nomination and it doesn't get a majority, the majority that's required, then the vice chair slot can be filled, and that would be the, if you wanted to go that.
May I suggest that you first vote whether you want to have a vice chair or not, for putting someone's name up. So I think the first order of business would be a motion to determine whether you want to have a vice chair.
Do I have that motion?
Pete, is your motion to have that we have a vice chairman on the planning and zoning commission?
Yeah, and when you're the responsibility to the vice chair.
Is there a second?
Do I have a second for that? Do I have a second?
No,
Oh, yeah, second for that.
Let's,
See who's in favor.
let's see who's in favor.
Are you going to roll or just asking?
Let's do a roll call.
Not to the judges. See.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, vice chair.
Yeah,
2, 3.
I say stick with the agenda as is for the package.
That's not the motion. That's not the motion.
So then my answer to that.
With the maximum. Dan?
Yeah, I think we just stay with the agenda as it is.
That's not the motion. We have a vice chair, not a vice chair.
Oh, okay, all right. I really couldn't hear, to tell you the truth, but no, I don't think we need a vice chair.
3, 3. Guess what? Yeah, I agree.
isn't it fun to be chair?
That's why you're chairman.
Okay, at this time, no.
I'm glad we had this discussion. I think
It's
clear. We have the
always
record. We have the record, and if it comes back to why that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm impatient discussing things to death.
Yeah.
I hope for early outs. Okay, now where are we? Okay. Do I have a nomination for secretary? Do I have a nomination for secretary?
I don't know if that opens.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? And by acclamation, Greg, congratulations. You're the secretary.
Practice reading motions.
I think I interviewed the last.
You did. You got it last time, so.
Let's take a short recess and.
Ramble.
Close the agenda, which is established meeting date and time.
If I could say, what I gave all you guys was the procedure that we followed, 2 pages long, which we abandoned, basically at the first step, so. At the end of that, it says that you recess and the proper people go in their seats and then you convene.
Okay.
But if you don't want to do that, you just want to go on with them, that's completely up to you.
Doesn't matter.
Before we start,
Yeah, yeah. It's not like that chair is 6 inches higher than the other.
I'm taking a call today.
Okay,
Going with the deals.
so let's move on to the actual. All right. Yes, let's, just trying to catch up here.
No,
Have you established the meeting times and dates to adopt the regular meeting schedule?
I would just say, I didn't have a chance to do the actual dates. I'll
Okay,
give that to
when's
you.
the cutoff date for that? To have it in?
I like to do it as soon as possible, so I'll bring it to the next meeting, but it's December 31st. But I'm assuming we are still gonna meet the first and third Tuesday of the month at 7:30. That's what I'll base it on.
Okay. Okay, agenda format and preparation for the time being, I think we should keep the format that we have, it seems to be working fairly well. Do I hear,
So we're gonna make a motion.
Second.
all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries by acclamation. Are we missing a packet? But anyway. Come on. Okay, rules of order.
So, yeah,
Is that what you do?
it's a little, just a little thing I put together today, which is part of why I was running around scrambling. Just a few little cheat sheets, and it explains like the minutes and certain motions and things like that. But it's based on Robert's rules, so,
What I suggested to the chairman before he was chair, is that perhaps what we could do is have the commission review that information. And next meeting, come back to about a 15-minute period where we could talk about it, and discuss it, and answer any questions rather than trying to go through that in a hurry right now.
It seems quite reasonable. Does anyone have a problem with that? No. So do I have a motion to put item 2 under F for the next meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Style of the minutes. Okay, I think. Hear from Jessica on this.
well, no, if you look on page 3, on this little thing, this little packet. It says meeting minutes.
Yeah,
It says, if you look at the top, agendas, meeting minutes, and it starts, minutes should include, minutes do not include, and that's it. And I'm trying to get away from taking hours and hours and hours to transcribe the minutes because it's pointless when you have the recording. Honestly, anybody can get the recording, I can email it to people.
Didn't we already discuss this? All you have to do is put down,
I understand, I'm a creature of habit and I have a hard time. So the more that you say, Jessica, this is all that needs to go in there, the more I'm gonna do it.
I need you to say that on a regular basis.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Be firm with me.
And, okay, any other matters related to the efficient functioning and organization of the commission? Do I hear anyone? Going once, going twice? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Jessica, do you have another copy of the packet?
Yours is here. Yes.
It got probably
Okay.
put down. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay, we're gonna call the regular meeting agenda
Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. To planning and zoning commission of town of Oxford for order of the recording done pledge. I have a roll call.
Dr. Dice, Daisy Perez, Dave Star,
Pat
Jack Sherman,
Cudrow,
Brett Mulberry, Jesse Sharma,
Kevin McCarroll,
Steve McCary.
Jessica
roll.
Connect.
Okay, we have a full forum, so I will be seeing an alternate. Okay, let's see. We have, says here, recess public hearing none.
We'll pretend it doesn't say none, and then we are all set.
Okay. We're gonna pretend it doesn't say none here. Okay, so we have a public hearing, continuation of public hearing, Z-21-133, 60 Oxford Road, on applicant, Midtown Holdings LLC, 50 Apple Drive, Oxford, Connecticut, proposed Dunkin' Donuts, special exception Article 10 and Article 7, Section 7.7.3.2, drive-through window, referring to planning and zoning engineer Jim Gallagher.
This came in after the packet was sent to you guys from Jim Gallagher. Okay. Did you get a copy of this, Don?
Yeah.
Probably from me.
Secretary, will you listen to the record?
Sure. So a letter dated November 16th, 2021 from Mass Young Engineers to Chairman.
Oh,
Is there something?
hello? Can you hear us?
Yes, yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
This is addressed to the chairman, at the time, Mr. Dave Sauter, Planning and Zoning Commission, Town of Oxford, 46 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, 478, regarding 60 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, dear Mr. Sauter. Mass Young Engineers is in receipt of a site plan for the above referenced address. The proposal is for a change of use from the previous bank to a Dunkin' Donuts food service with a driveway window. No significant physical changes are proposed. However, there are two issues that the commission should consider. First, the site will now have a drive-through order window. The applicant proposes to include 14 drive-through spaces in the drive-through queue. The applicant should demonstrate the adequacy of this number. Two, the side development plan includes 21 parking spaces. The parking schedule indicates that 27 spaces are required by zoning regulations. The commission should determine if you have the authority to approve this shortage, or if this issue should be referred to the Oxford Zoning Appeals Commission. If you should have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at 203-315-8841. Sincerely, James Gallagher, Nelson Young Engineers, Town of Oxford.
Is there any other
there's
correspondence?
nothing new,
Okay,
just the revised plan.
you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Al Smith Jr., professional engineer with Office 56 Circuit Seymour. Tonight, representing the owner and applicant of the property, Kit County Holdings LLC. Mr. Jimmy Zeppos, of that LLC is here with me tonight from the audience. As you're aware, this is a continued public hearing, from, I guess, about a month, actually. It was continued because we did not have wetland approval at that time. So let me just kind of circle back and I'll bring everybody, especially everybody to one more. We're here for 60 Oxford Road, the former Shelton Savings Bank, Webster Savings Bank, and currently vacant two-story building. Bank is on the first floor, the upper level of the building houses insurance offices. The proposal for what we're here for tonight is an application for a special exception for a drive-through window for Dunkin' Donuts. To refresh everybody's memory, the site is also located at the intersection of Great Hill Road at Route 67. The site is controlled by the fully signalized intersection at that intersection. In order to secure wetlands approval, we needed to reduce the prior plan that we presented had about a 1,700 square foot increase in impervious area. In order to secure wetland approval, we had to maintain net zero in terms of increase in impervious. So we need to maintain our existing impervious coverage. So in order to do that, we removed the front projection of the building. If you're familiar with that building, it's a two-story building. The front section there is a one-story building. So we removed that front section of the building, which was about 400 square feet, and we removed 3 parking spaces. There was a parking space previously. There was a parking space over here. That's number 1 in the southwest corner of the site. There were 2 more parking spaces in the southeast corner of the site closest to the river. There was additional impervious that has been removed. Additionally, we had some additional width between the building and our property line adjacent to Fritz's. So we pulled that parking lot, we pulled the edge of that driveway parking area away from Fritz's a little bit in order to create a small rain garden or depression along that side of the property. The effect of removing the front section of the building is a reduction in 4 parking spaces. Based on your regulations, that front projection is approximately 400 square feet, 1 space per 100. So that by removing that front section of the building, we reduced our parking requirement from 31 to 27. With the reductions that we made, we were able to reduce 3 parking spaces. So overall, our net difference from before, we had 31, required 31, but also provided 24 for a delta of 7 that we were short. Now with revised calculations, we are only required to provide 27, of which we provide 21. So we're a little bit closer, but we're still short of parking. I think that's what we're still gathering. We did submit some revised building elevations. Part of the application and revised floor plan. The revised floor plan shows that front section of the building coming out from the end. Recall previously there were 2 new bathrooms, public bathrooms that have been constructed in that area. So those have been removed and the exterior of the store has more or less been compressed into the building. We're still providing a new doorway opening out toward the Route 67 side in order for staff to go out and provide any cars that might be that have larger orders, or they want to tie up the windows and then pull the head to the window space. So, to reduce the size of the building, but the architectural elevations are essentially the same for front elevation. Still have 2 windows. What's missing is that 3rd dimension with the front sticking out. But this is Route 67 side. This would be the parking lot side. Route 67 would have the main building mounted sign. back of the building facing Little River, has not changed. And then the side of the building facing Fritz's, architecture is, again, the front section of the building has been removed. The architecture is still showing the two signs on that side of the building. We did receive Mr. Gallagher's copy of his report. Number two, that obviously for you folks to determine in relation to his comment number one. Department of Transportation provided some guidelines. Their Office of Inventory Forecasting, Bureau of Policy Planning conducted a study. 15 Dunkin' Donuts throughout the state of Connecticut. And the purpose of that was to identify what the appropriate queue distance is. How many cars should be able to stack up from pickup window all the way out to the site? How many cars can be accommodated on site in that drive-through lane? DOT's recommendation after studying 15 different Dunkin' Donuts came up with a recommendation that 14 spaces should be provided in that queue lane in order to minimize the impacts on the food road. So our queue distance provides that 14 numbers, but that's under 14 spaces. The order window is 4 spaces back, and there are 10 spaces in line fully on the property. Even if this drive-through lane has 14 vehicles stacked up in it, vehicles can still come in, access these parking spaces, and drive around the back of the property and then exit the property. So even though there are 14 spaces in that drive-through lane, the site would still function in terms of being able to circulate. So this was like an 80-70 page study. So I just took the first page and the last 2 pages. I'll submit that for the record. If you want the whole study, I can provide it to Jessica. Immediately in this first couple of pages. Again, to reinforce, this is a not existing non-conforming piece of property. It's only about 3/4 of an acre as opposed to your acre and a half that would be required in a commercial zone. We only have 140 foot square as opposed to 160 required. And our frontage on Route 67 is only 140 feet compared to 175. Unlike the bank building previously, this building is now connected to the sanitary sewer. It's served by municipal water and natural gas, so there are no oil on site. Part of the improvements will be to relamp all of the existing site lighting with new LED fixtures. Catalog cuts of those fixtures were submitted as part of the initial. Building will receive a coat of paint. Our schedule is actual paint. Generally, it's going to be the body of the building will be a darker gray, gauntlet gray, a off-white trim. Currently, the site does not have a dumpster enclosure. So part of our increase in impervious that we had to accommodate was to provide for a dumpster enclosure in the back. We've also made some storm drainage improvements by adding additional catch basin on site so that parking lot runoff is about 1/3 of this parking lot that just discharges directly into the river. That catch basin back to intercept that and provide that water quality discharging from the site. The is touching base on your special exception criteria and regulations. Project site does not meet the thresholds listed to require a traffic study. Well, it's, would require one. The proposal does not meet those thresholds, so that is why we did not submit a traffic study. So we don't think. We don't believe the project would be a detriment to the area, where it was already a fully developed commercial area for more than 30 years. Much of the traffic that expected to use this site already passes through this Great Hill Road intersection. Anybody that's using the existing Dunkin' Donuts, unless they're going further west on Great Hill Road, after visiting Dunkin' Donuts, they have to come through this intersection. Right? You only get into Moxie Road and you're coming back out of Great Hill Road. So, other than traffic that's going down Route 6 to Great Hill Road, theoretically, all of the traffic on Dunkin' Donuts, or the majority of the traffic on Dunkin' Donuts is currently getting used to that intersection. So we really don't expect great deal of change to that intersection from what currently exists. Taking the necessary steps to protect the sensitive environmental features, we piece of Little River in the back, the aquifer protection zone, and groundwater supply to the Aquaria well field. The Aquaria well field, one of the water supply wells is just south of the property, about 170 feet. So there are 200-foot sanitary radius for that well. So that's part of our. And then lastly, the project is not expected to have an impact on public services, be it fire, police, schools, and sanitary sewer disposal. So with that, here to answer any questions. If there are still more unanswered questions. Yes.
The actual inside seating, has that been reduced?
I'm sorry.
The actual inside seating,
Yeah.
has that been reduced?
No, the number of seats inside have not been reduced.
Okay, and you mentioned sewers. Did you say you're now connected to the sewers or not connected?
The building is now connected to the sanitary sewer. Previously, it was served by a septic system. Right after the current property owner purchased property this summer, he had it connected to the sewer, so it is connected to the sanitary sewer. The septic system has been. As far as the seating, just to recap on that, the prior plan had 14 seats inside. This one has 14 seats inside. If we wish to necessary to reduce that number of seats to correlate with the parking, that would be the.
There is no.
I have a couple of safety questions for you. Dunkin' Donuts is delivered by a tractor trailer, right?
Yes.
Where's the tractor trailer that will pull to this parking lot to deliver?
They have the ability to schedule Dunkin' Donuts for the off hours. The tractor trailer truck again may just turn at the back, not necessarily if there are vehicles stacked in the drive-through, but they can make that turn in the back. They would probably stack up in this parallel parking spaces one side of the property.
How you're in your delivery, this driveway, I've been down there the last 2 weeks, paying attention to who's here now. And that driveway kind of tight with tractor trailer, and that's driving me probably. I drove for 20 years. The whole tractor trailer is very. And then, if they come in, when they're open, you got customers in the corner, and people in the park on your left hand side, to the filter.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to prevent, when I was there this weekend, I took the here's what I'm trying to do. And this is constant. And there's a lot of commercial traffic inside that, on 57. So for that, things I did it periodically, morning, afternoon, and night.
The picture that Pete is talking about, is a triaxle dump truck that's pulled off of the shoulder, front of Greco Plaza. So it's actually across the street.
Yeah.
And then rather than him going into that parking lot, they park there, go walk across the parking lot and get into something else.
Larger commercial.
It's gotta be a little bit longer walk for them to be parking over, going that side and then getting to the store.
The remaining fact is they shouldn't be parking on the street like that. Those are unspot. The places should have a place for trucks to go into. Not able to drive like that. And this is not the only place on 57 where these trucks are going over. But this is what I'm talking about now. That's my main concern is the safety in that area. Heavy operated place, a lot of traffic all the time. And the trucks I saw in the company parking lot were larger than cars. So, I'm thinking, bigger parking. And that's without a contract with a trailer. That's just truck. You need to park on the street and cause a problem, or you like to go in there and block off to the right hand side and block off the parking. Just safety. That's what I'm worried about, the safety aspect of this.
Commissioners across.
Yeah,
Can you please identify that picture?
this is Route 67, right across the street, right in front of the Dunkin' Donuts and right over there, Dunkin' Donuts.
Pete, when was that taken specifically?
That was taken at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
This was here.
Sorry, actually.
So that triaxle, that dump truck is what's referred to as a single unit truck. Okay, that's not a tractor trailer, that's a single unit truck. So that triaxle dump truck, this turn at the end has been sized to allow a single unit truck to make that turn while vehicles are early that drive through. So, as far as parking on Route 67, that may be something that DOT looks at and asks for, and then, the appropriate one posted as no parking. 67. I think a number of years ago, we were up at the Sunoco station. Just a little bit further north of that, they had that same issue with the old gas station. used to be. And then DOT came in, did some landscaping, did more of a burn, and then they stopped all of those trucks from parking there, sorry. So that becomes somewhat a DOT issue.
Well, if we're gonna allocate this development and we're causing a problem, I think you're supposed to park in the street, and that's our problem. First of all, not the problem, make sure it's safe. That people not are safe driving down at 67.
Well, that truck is,
That's what that one truck.
I understand, but that area of Route 67, there are no parking signs posted. So DOT thought that was an issue. They can obviously see that's being used for parking, they would have posted no parking sign.
DOT did not get it from, they didn't fix that place on 67, there's no station referring to, until they got complaints. That's when they fixed it. So they probably not got no complaints as of Great Hill Road in 67. But you know, I'm looking for a safety net. I don't see safe with these trucks parked alongside 67 and going for that. Believe me, I sat there, I made sure they went to Dunkin' Donuts, they didn't go into the deli. Went right into Dunkin' Donuts.
But at the time of the day, they could have been there for the deli as well, or the smoke shop, so.
I could go back and take pictures for the whole day, but I'm here 2 weeks watching. If I had other pictures, but I didn't go to put them all out there. I got them on my phone, I have it all.
Okay, sir, anyone else?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
The worry that I have with this, and maybe there is a way to address this, is that so much of the parking in there is gonna require consumers to actually walk through the drive-through lane to get into the Dunkin' Donuts. And everybody here, whether you want to admit it or not, if you're sitting and waiting, you're in the drive-through, how many people, with your phones, whatever, all the car move, that job, etc. It just happens, and I'm afraid somebody, potentially being hurt. Along those lines, is there any way that we can think about either some sort of signage or a combination with a crosswalk or directions to people that are coming in, so that way we can direct them where they want to be crossing? Also, drivers are a lot more cognizant. If they see a sign or a flashing light, but just something that says crosswalk, they know automatically that people, pedestrians are going to have the right way. Is that something that we can try and figure out a way to work into it?
Yeah, certainly, I think so. The accessible routes or the handicap parking spaces behind the building. And the accessible route is coming, getting on the sidewalk here and heading up towards 67, coming up the front door. So, I think we probably could extend somewhat of a crosswalk on both sides. And not strike behind the building. No parking indicated that someone will walk, like, could continue that striping to the north and to the south across.
You see where I'm going with that, and even parking spaces themselves, if there's somebody's parking 1, 2, 3 or something, even just a sign right there when they pull in, use crosswalk to cross this up. Just something to remind them to let them know there's a crosswalk there, and I think that's gonna embarrass the crosswalk almost geared towards looking for something like that and stopping and building stuff. That's what I want to do.
Good addition.
Are you just, oh, okay, I see, so they would, would you lose a parking spot to the crosswalk? If you were to put in a crosswalk in the spot, you lose a parking.
I don't think it's gonna carry all the way over to the curb on either side. It can be across the driveway areas. So I'm gonna say no.
Just following up on Mr. Sauter's question. So you have a minimum of 14, which is the minimum that the state allows or recommends for that volume of the store. Is it possible that we get that 85-page study as opposed to just the first in the website? That the report that you referred to, the DMG study or DOT study with regard to the required, what do you call it?
Static.
The static.
Static one.
Can we get that 80-page? You said you would submit it. I'd like to see that.
Sure.
It's in there.
It's, they basically, that's just
Oh, what did you,
a DOT.
That's it. We don't have to go over it now.
Yeah, but the bulk of the 80 pages was them taking the 15 sites and doing their traffic analysis at the intersection of all 15 sites.
And I'm sure that some of them have like the variance between the stores might be instructive to how we apply this special exceptions, so we can formulate the best safety precaution. So it might be informative for members of the commission to have that entire amount. But I appreciate that. My only concern is I'm somewhat familiar with this from other issues. If you do have a crosswalk that's designated, and basically your stacking area goes on the entire parking, right, from there to, so you would have to provide a crosswalk from the.
These in the center here, these behind the building kind of have their own access way. So these behind the building are taken care of.
But now, so for the record, you're referring to the center parking spots. But the parking spots in your diagram that are off to the right-hand side on a diagonal, those would be supplied by a crosswalk, I think. Or the request would be, if not, they're gonna have to, those passengers that want it to see egress into the building are gonna have to cut through the drive-through line and hopefully not get run over by people looking at their Twitter feeds and
Correct, we would show as a space either here by the door, perhaps midway, or again.
And if you did that, you wouldn't, I don't think you'd be able to account that as a parking spot if it's in the designated crosswalk. So you would lose this parking spot, it would be down to 13, which would be below the required amount that's recommended by DOT.
The crosswalk would not extend into the parking space, the crosswalk would be across the drive.
It would be, go across the drive, which has 14 spots, but you would not be able to park if you were in that area, in the queue. You wouldn't be able to park in the crosswalk. You're not allowed to park in the crosswalk. So you would lose that one parking spot.
No, I think that we would, in one spot in the queue.
Yes.
Okay, no, I think we have some room, we still have some room here with space number 14 that we would be able to stretch that queue out and provide 2 crosswalks.
So you would have to move further down into the,
This number 14 car here is gonna move a little bit closer to Route 67 in order to provide a gap here, a gap over here.
well, then you're missing 2 because you have the other side as well. So that would be a parking spot there in that queue, that section of the queue, that you would lose a space. So you'd actually lose 2 spaces.
No, you're not going to lose space, but this number 14, car number 14 is gonna back up a little.
But that was just assuming you lose the one spot, that one queue on the left side or the right side. But of course, you corrected me and I appreciate that. You would also have to put a crosswalk on the left-hand side for those parking spots that are not diagonal or are adjacent. So that's another spot in the queue that you would lose.
I don't think we could lose any spaces in the queue to stretch it out and put a break in there for a crosswalk.
I'm not so sure about that, and I think that would be something that the commission might want to consider. I just had one comment also with regard to the special exception. I don't think there's any special requirement for us to do a traffic study that says we're not required to in certain circumstances. It's committed to the commission's discretion. If the regulation gets certain situations where we're required, but I think we can do that for any. Obviously, if you look at the purpose of the special exceptions, reading from 10.1.2, the impact of proposed use on traffic, including the impact on public roads, and we can consider that in terms of safety. So I kind of echo the concerns of the commissioners here. My experience has been going to, I know the Dunkin' Donuts down on 34 and some of the other, the Starbucks. I've seen situations where you've got more than a number of parking spaces in the queue. You get traffic that backs out. People are just committed to their parking. And you're going to have lines of traffic that will meander into that intersection. So I have a concern about the adequacy of the traffic plan here. I also have a concern. This seems to be the first time that we've seen this particular plan. And it's modified. And I don't think it's fair that the current time standards for the special exception in the public hearing should be running. With this new, I think this requires a lot more investigation by the commission. And I'm going to ask later on for some input from the chairman as to whether we should request a continuance or whether how to proceed with this. Because we shouldn't be stuck to our 60-day requirement with the public hearing where new information is coming before us with regard to the new plan.
I think the public hearing is a 35-day requirement.
Yeah,
Correct. I get those confused too. And if you feel like we need additional information, you can request for an extension of time, at least to our next meeting. And that way you're not using up to 65 days, that we can extend a portion of everything.
and just generally how these things, I look for your experience where we aren't granted the continuance. And generally in those situations where it's the request of the commission can then say, especially with a special exception, it's committed to our discretion and deny special exception.
Well, I think we get a little bit ahead of ourselves by saying that, but if you can't extend the hearing, you would close the hearing, take the evidence you have in front of you, and make a decision whether or not you could approve it based on the evidence in front of you.
And we had felt that that was inadequate, obviously.
So then you could deny it, or you could approve it with
And I'm-
conditions that would require submission of other details. So, you know, there's very a lot of flexibility.
Again, I'm not commenting on this particular
I'm just talking
hearing.
in general.
I'm talking in general terms, when a request for extension would be requested and how it would be perceived by the applicant. So not this applicant, but just general. Make the record clear on that. So, going back, I know that the town engineer had indicated that we as the commission should be looking into the adequacy. Language. The applicant should demonstrate the adequacy of this number, that's the 14 spaces. Obviously, somebody's gonna have to review that report. I'm just, and this is, I'm putting it out to the commission, we should get our own traffic study to determine the adequacy of that. And I have no reason to question that. My experience with applicant and his representatives, or at least the representative, has always been positive. But I think in this type of situation, where we have an obligation with regulations to ensure the safety of the public with respect to this particular application of the traffic as it relates to the roadway and also this area, this particular plot. I think we may wish to, at least have this, have our own study done to determine whether this 14 number is adequate. I can speak from experience. I started to talk about this at Starbucks. There's one in Waterbury where the people are just so dead set on getting their coffee that they'll have the blinker on in the traffic lane of the road, waiting, pull in, and I'll park down the street, walk in, get my coffee, and walk out, and they're still sitting there. And it's, how long are you going to wait for coffee? Unfortunately, it seems like people are just, wanting to just sit in their cars and wait to get to the drive-through. With this, especially where this Dunkin' Donuts is located, I think we're going to be running into that problem, and it's in a very difficult intersection. So I think that we should probably, be looking at traffic study or our own parking analysis. I know parking has been a real issue in town. So that would be my request. Also, I have a question through this representative.
I don't drink Dunkin' Donuts, so I don't know.
I'm sorry. But this is through the representative. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Smith, Alan Smith.
Alan Smith. I was gonna say. Of the council, is there anything in the regulations as it relates to point 2 by by engineer Valley that would allow the commission to disregard the regulations with respect to the minimum?
Section 3.24.2 talks about reserved for future parking. It seems, the language seems to say there can be a 25% deviation from what the required parking is. Now, my math is correct, 6 spaces, divided into 27 is about 0.22% of variation.
But wouldn't that be reserved space for additional parking, not to allow us the reg is written in terms of minimum, not maximum, so.
It's hard to say. But it's how you interpret it.
Well, reserved for future would say it's positive parking, that they want more parking. You wouldn't reserve less for future.
That's kind of how, that's the only language I see that people talk about parking.
So I would submit that, and correct me if my analysis is wrong, the regulation says you are required to have 27 spaces. And it doesn't say, and the commission can deviate and appoint a lesser number. We can reserve more space for future parking. But we can't deviate, so that would have to be committed to the zoning board of appeals, which is generally the board that reviews those hardships when there's an inability under the regs, in the application.
I think the likelihood is that the various regulations would have to go to the ZBA. It's hard to interpret this any other, a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the commission has interpreted it previously, so I can't really answer that.
And as to interpretation, generally, the rules of construction, you don't interpret if it's clear. It says the minimum number of.
Right.
You interpret something if it's vague.
Or you have an opportunity to either adjust it or disregard it by your own regulations. So the number can be a hard and fast number, you can always change it if the regulations allow you to do that on basic circumstances, but it
But
doesn't.
there has to be a regulatory provision to allow that. And that's a mandate from the Supreme Court. The zoning
For
commission
instance, if you look up in the above schedules in the same sections, there's several areas as determined by the commission. So there is already a consideration in your regulations that the commission can make changes, that doesn't apply in the street.
In this one, it says a minimum of.
Right.
So in doing rules, as lawyers do rules, apply statutory construction, this is not an ambiguous provision.
I would think that perhaps a variance would be most appropriate.
All right,
I think part of that discussion, the table of permitted uses, the only thing that was closed was a restaurant. And I don't know that a Dunkin' Donuts are classified. That's,
they do sell breakfast goods and sandwiches. It's not just a coffee shop, right? That's a good point, but just to play the devil's
I
advocate.
just said, when you think of a restaurant, you don't think of a Dunkin' Donuts being a restaurant. That's what the regulations want.
It's like McDonald's is a restaurant for the application. I don't think it's clean food provisions. It's like, this, they sell food here. They sell sandwiches, it meets all the criteria. One other problem that I had, so pointing to your map, you've got the building that's marked out in red in the center. And then there are spaces behind, right? There are 8 spaces there.
2, 3, the handicap is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yes.
And those spaces are surrounded by the queue.
Right, but there's a painted walkway. Here, striped walkway, there's a striped walkway between the aisles, between the spaces, so this is wider than just the 38 feet, it's 38 plus 5. A striped walkway.
No, as to the adequacy of the parking, I think the numbers are fine. My concern is just from a public safety standpoint, you've got people down there, when the queue is full and somebody's parking there and they want to exit, they have to wait for that line to move, which means somebody has to take an order. The clerk then has to get done with the bathroom break, bring the coffee to the next, when the car has to advance. And hopefully that person stops enough to allow the car to back out. So you've got people that can get stuck in there and that creates contention.
I guess the hope is that people are showing some respect.
Some respect
Some
and-
consideration, but I want to get to the order window and push my order, so.
You've been watching the news lately, how much does respect garner in today's society? So that's a concern as well. I think that's all. And I apologize to you, I took up a lot of time. Are you good? Does anyone else have any comments at this time?
One more. On the parking space, you said it's an insurance company on top of the building that rents that building.
Correct.
How many parking places do they take?
They take about 3 or 4.
And is that added into your 27 car?
Yes, sir.
So these
By
are-
your regulations, the upstairs takes 6 spaces. Professional office, second floor, professional offices, 1 space for 250 square feet, 6.8 spaces upstairs. They don't use 7 spaces, they use 3, maybe 4 spaces. And that tenant's been in that building since it was built in 1985. That tenant is stay.
Parking space, will they put this other added in your parking space?
Part of the upstairs is included in the site, the required number for the site 27. Okay, thank you.
chairman in the room.
Just one additional question. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Zabras had asked a question, and I wanted to follow up on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The 14 for the queue, the GOT, was that to the order window or the pickup window?
From the pickup window. From the pickup window.
It's not 14 from the order window, and
14 from the pickup.
usually that's the way, when you look at these, all the backups at the order window back.
It's a backup from the pickup window to the order point. And
Right, that's all.
yeah, generally, it's, you know, it's, with the DOT, Duncan standard is about 2 or 2.5 minutes from the time you place the order to pick it up. So that's basically the four spaces there. The 14 of the queue goes from the pickup
From the
window
pickup.
all the way to the exit back.
Thank you.
And that'll be part of that study, provide the full study on that. That they have looked at basically the number of spaces in the queue, how much that was generally used, so, but I think it's that whole
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
electronic records. You know, just electronically, or you want?
No,
six-
yeah, the PA. The pages.
I get the, so the only point I would make, is that, I understand Commissioner Kerwin's point, that the safety is a concern when you are crossing at, or the traffic, but I don't know of a store anywhere where you can get into the store itself without crossing traffic, even Market 32. I mean, you park behind the outside of the door, unless you literally pull up in front of the door and get out the passenger side, you literally have to cross traffic. So I completely understand your point, and I agree with it. But I don't know of a store that you can get into without crossing traffic.
This is a specific queue line,
No, I understand.
as opposed to what you're referring to as you park at Market 32 when you walk across.
Regular drivers, people are.
This is a queue line designated for parking. You're gonna be sitting in that queue line, which is different. And all the other ones, they'll have a crosswalk that's designated.
No, I understand that. But my point being that even in the queue line, if a car was moving, it's literally moving 2 miles an hour versus, and I don't want to argue health safety, but Market 32 or even current Dunkin' Donuts, those cars are moving at a faster pace than past those.
That's a great point. I think you're missing my point. My point is how many numbers of spaces in the queue. My point, they had to take away a queue space.
I get that.
if they put them. So it's not, obviously, it's hopefully nobody that's the concern, but it's the adequacy of the parking plan for the 14 if they have the crosswalk with the actual semaphore that leads it down.
So
They're not gonna be able to use that space as a designated queue space.
So your point is, I don't know if I'm about to ask a question, so clarification, so your point is more about the number of spaces versus crossing the traffic, crossing through the
It's
traffic.
good, yeah, obviously. We all walk into the,
Yeah.
we have to walk through, it's the number of spaces and whether that has a detrimental impact on the number of spaces they provided in the plan. And I would submit that it would, because you've got that semaphore isn't the right term. Yeah. You've got that. I think,
And my answer, sir, is no, adding 2 crosswalks across the queue lane will not reduce the 14 spaces that are there.
no, I appreciate that. I disagree with it.
But and I would agree with Commissioner Oldby's comment is that you've got active traffic, most other places you go and you have active traffic that you're crossing to get into the store. Here you have the active traffic and then you're concerned about crosswalk against the stop lane.
In our findings,
We can stretch that out.
with, which we go with. what's that? Market 32. That's in the end. There are.
John White works.
So in that crosswalk, You can't park in that parking, that's the point. Once it's designated as a crosswalk, you can't park.
We had two choices, we had to put a crosswalk in park. They had trouble with the kids running out of that school. Yes, we did.
And before we, Mr. Knight, you can comment and ask any questions.
Aware,
If
yes.
you want.
Thank
Okay, even though you're not seeing anything, you are allowed to ask questions, so please feel free. Right. Do we have anything else? Any other questions?
Commissioner Cohen, does the crosswalk have to be full? Is there a legal size of the crosswalk? Like, does the crosswalk have to be in? Because I mean.
Right, some places they're 8 or 9
Right,
feet wide.
not, right, so we're talking about 14 queue spaces, and moving that into, the problem is going into 7 safety is concerned. You're saying there is space available. If the crosswalk doesn't have to be legal size, I mean, I'm just.
That's usually by a tractor.
By
The adequacy of it is, the engineer, our engineer would say, you should have this much space.
Right.
Because it's serviced by this many people. The crosswalk down in Market 32, because they have carriages, there's a certain size that's required, as opposed to just a crosswalk for a sidewalk that goes across the street, it's just pedestrian traffic, so. Those, I mean, that's about my opinion, that would be it. We want to ask an engineer that.
And I think the biggest concern obviously the queue is still, not so much the queue itself, the spillage. And I have a concern with that last part. I don't see that as being a representative entry point to that, right? Who's making that turn to sit in that position? So I would argue there's a concern additionally with the spillage and the crosswalks, pushing that car further back now eliminates even more, and growing concerns of things ending up, of people ending up either in the crosswalk, blocking the box if you will, or sitting and queuing into the street itself. And I don't know that, yes, maybe there's a study in the page for, but do they go back and validate, right, that yes, we agree is 14 spots, right? Or no, this is not really realistic, so that spot doesn't count. I feel a little bit concerned about that. And I will echo the traffic kind of studies as well. That intersection is going to have an impact, even though it's just moving across the street. It is a change, significant change to that area.
And then one last question, I mean, since we're talking about spillage, I mean, are there any studies that you know of with Dunkin' Donuts drive-throughs to show how many cars at one point in time may be at a drive-through?
Dunkin' Donuts says they did not have that type of study. Again, I'll provide you full depth of that study so you can take a look at it.
Maybe it's not even Dunkin' Donuts.
15 sites. That was what DOT did. They took a statewide survey of 15 different Dunkin' Donuts, specifically looking at the amount of traffic coming in and the number of spaces that should be provided in the queue. I'll provide that study and see if that provides them. Yes, sir. When you were saying that, you bring the space number 14, right?
You're heading northbound, is that a realistic representation? There's 13 in the queue, is that a realistic representation of somebody coming in from a northbound, right, route? Would they actually end up in that? Sure, you get a full bed pickup truck, right? Are they gonna now be blocking, and what's the trickle down impact of that for people trying to get in, maybe parking or get into the queue as well?
So, at this point, what it seems to be is.
Just a short question. Is it listed anywhere on what the distance is from the pickup window all the way back around to where the entrance would come in by number 14? So I'm imagining
280 feet.
200. I'm imagining
14 spaces at 24 per space is 280 feet. Again, that's more or less documented in the DOT.
Okay, and that's going to be in the report. I think that'll help us in context in terms of looking at a typical crosswalk section number
200.
This will be able to accommodate
Statute
The stacking spaces are 20 feet long.
That in space for 20 feet per vehicle for each of the 14 vehicles to come up with, which represents the pickup window, moving all the way around back to 6 to 7. Correct. All right, that helps. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Does Commissioner Wall have any questions?
Dan, you have any questions?
No, Jess, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else online have any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like anybody wants to talk.
Does anyone in the audience have anything to say?
Just, Mr.
Step up,
Seavers.
please, and identify yourself.
James Apples, 15 Apple Drive. Mr. Seavers, the deliveries are 4 in the morning. They schedule the deliveries for Dunkin' Donuts. So they do not come during business hours. And then the parking on the side there, all these are employee parking. So in regards to crosswalk, you mentioned last time at the hearing, about people who are talking. And, I don't think you need a crosswalk here for our employees.
I was looking at the 6 spot on the right hand side.
And I don't know, you guys are looking at extreme here, 14, you think it's gonna be 14 all day? Maybe at its peak time, maybe, but Dunkin', they move the lines out fast. They move on fast, and that's why we had that 1-2 extra wait. If it is a big order, they push it to the side and have that door out, just to keep the flow going.
I store from 14 people, so I was busy.
Is there another question? All right, okay, it seems to me that we have some parking questions and some traffic questions. So I guess the first, or maybe we should, traffic study. I'm opening up the discussion.
I think that would be appropriate. Obviously, Mr. Smith is an excellent engineer. I appreciate his work, but he has a job to do. That's to guide his planning through the process. I'd like to get another opinion, so I think it would be beneficial to have this plan reviewed from an independent analysis and see whether they feel that possibly 14 is inadequate for that too. That there might be some other issues that we're not considering that haven't come forward. So I think that would be a good idea.
Any other opinions? I gotta go along with John.
What I was thinking of, you mentioned TPA, we need something less than the 20. My only concern is that if we're going to be requiring any of these extra steps, can we have them run simultaneously? So
We'll have to, we'll have to look at.
Yeah, the time you go there, you want it on another.
I don't want to extend it any farther. We have to, oh, right, we're going to do an extension at this point.
Yeah, and just on Chairman, Commissioner, so Chairman, yes, okay. And Commissioner, I don't, that ultimate decision about the 27 versus the 21 spaces, that would just come up in the end of deliberations. We would either have to do a yea or nay on the application and clarify, specify this is the purpose, setting it up for ZBA.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that would make it.
Okay. All right, anyone else want to weigh in on this? I got the question.
How does the traffic study work? I've been involved, so that process, they want to have.
Oh, well, yeah, the engineer can explain how traffic.
Typically, the way a traffic study would work is they would first go out and do traffic counts of your existing volumes. Not only the through volume on the road, but where your turning volumes are coming in and coming out. So you establish a baseline traffic volume. They would look at what this facility is going to generate in terms of trips per hour during the peak hour, morning or afternoon. That study says 200 vehicles in, 200 vehicles out in the peak hour. So that's kind of a number that you would start with. You take the existing traffic and apply that number going in. We look at the operation of the signal and how that's timed. And then see, we run that through a software program, and it will give us a capacity analysis. And it will tell us what the level of service of this intersection would be. We would do that under the existing conditions before we even look at Dunkin' Donuts. What is the existing level of service during peak hour? Level A, level delay, level F, force flow. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F. So we would establish that for the baseline. So we would look at what the impact of the development would be with those traffic numbers. Would it change the level of service of this intersection? This intersection is currently at level of service D. By adding this facility in, is it stay at D? Does it go to an E or an F? Does it stay at D? It's certainly not going to get better, but it stay where it was before. So it's a lot of mathematical equations and timing and the number of vehicles that pass through the signal. So that's what traffic engineers. So
There's some analysis also as to how to apply those, where to get those numbers, how to come up with those basic determinations.
Well,
Said this is
the DOT, the traffic volumes are existing. You're not gonna do the change that. DOT, the state road DOT gives you expansion factors to use, that it's gonna be a 1% or 2% growth over the next, every year for the next 3, 5, 20 years. But DOT, part of that report, is DOT already said that these types of facilities, the proper number is 400. 200 vehicles going in, 200 vehicles going out in the peak hour. So that would be the number that traffic.
And that would be the recommendation of DOT, but that's just one, that isn't a binding mandate. That's their analysis to be used. And engineers can look at that and say, this is the best case scenario, this is the worst case scenario.
All right, so the two things.
I'm gonna defer to council. I understand we started this previously. There's no problem granting an extension, but now this is the fact that now we have wetlands in place. This being the first meeting that wetland is in place, does the clock start here going ahead or?
The clock is starting when we open the public hearing.
Okay.
So I
Even though-
I would recommend to the commission and to you or Mr. Smith, that perhaps we do an extension for 35 days. That would get us through both meetings in December. We're just talking about the timing of the traffic study and how quickly it may happen quickly, we don't know. But that gets us to at least that point, so we can have that information back by then, fingers crossed. We're not using up all the 30 days, if that makes sense to you.
I would move that.
It's, the applicant has to just assess the question.
I would say that let's consider carefully, the second meeting in December is December 21st. Okay, that's, I would say, I don't know. I'm just saying, if that's the only thing on the agenda, I'm good with that. But we cannot, I'm sorry, I don't know who does the shopping in your house, but if it's not you, you don't feel my pain, or the baking, or the cooking, or anything else. So we have to be careful with that meeting.
We're another 2 weeks out, expect that we're getting to January 4th, we'll use up another 14 days.
But I don't want to drag it out. I'm saying, obviously have the meeting, but we have to be very, very careful of what it is and how long it goes. If we're going to be talking about a traffic study and having all sorts of experts and engineers here, it's going to be a 3-hour meeting.
So we want to do it in 2022 or the last meeting and just go hate all this?
I would kind of agree with just, I think moving on more than 30 days. Again, Commissioner
We just
Kerwin
told me
was
that.
indicating that in the commission that was going to do independent traffic study. So I don't know, you haven't asked us if I have, I'm not sure who's going to be doing that traffic study. Whatever, 30 days, 45 day, 60 day. Your recommendation.
This, choose our own expert.
Right, I think we probably asked your town engineer to suggest someone.
Yeah.
I don't have one off the top of my head, and I think town engineer will know someone who does well.
So we should ask, maybe, you know, so that application, if we decide to do traffic study. We haven't decided that. We have that motion,
Well, that was what
so, right,
I would make a motion.
okay, we have a motion on the floor for a traffic study, do I have a second? Second, Mr. Ross, all in favor? Opposed? Staying? There you go.
Just a little reminder, anything over $5,000 has to go out to bid. I don't know how much it'll cost, but that's to consider. I don't know how much a traffic study costs, that's why I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't have that.
$4,995. It's not gonna be that big, it might be that big.
I'll do it.
Now, an extension, a new extension to when? 45 days. What, 2 days?
I would ask if we can get it done sooner, just to accommodate.
Right, well, we don't have to wait till the last day, we can always do it sooner if everything falls in place.
49 days gets you to the January 24th meeting.
49 days.
Yep.
We just do 60, if that, it's a nice number.
And schedule for that.
Good information comes in. We can access it exactly, we can find the applicant, representatives, and then done. And this is designed to research the parking issue.
Full of good ideas tonight. Also, you can also have a special meeting if you have stuff done ahead of time. You know, so that you have more time to go over the stuff before you have to close the hearing and stuff like that.
We're getting into that tough season with the holidays and
Yeah.
whatever the weather is gonna be great. So I guess we trust that we'll be processed as expeditiously as possible.
Chairman, on Wesley, a 60-day extension on the applicant.
There are some questions.
Hmm?
Done.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have to confirm with my client, we'll grant a 60-day extension to the statutory timeframe. We just asked that that process be expedited as far as the statutory reasonable.
So at this time, if you have no questions, from the commission, I will entertain a motion to recess this public hearing till
December 7th? Is that when we're doing it?
and assuming we'll have everything in place by then. Hopefully.
The big issue, I think, is going to be the traffic study.
Well, that's, but as far as the revisions that you asked for, plan to show
Those,
problems.
phone calls were made for
Okay. From 7:30.
Yep.
7:30 PM?
Yes.
From 7:30. Okay, thank you very much.
Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next in our agenda is a public hearing. And it's for C-21-142, 400 Old Path, on the applicant, the resident of Fort Walker, Thomas. These subdivisions are six, section 6.2.4.
I gotta have this recorded.
I know. Here,
Make sure you have it.
here, you know what? I think it's all right here.
Okay, I call this public hearing to order. The intent of the public hearing is to have the applicant and or his authorized representative present to the commission to the public all information that is deemed necessary to purchase the application. Two, to hear questions from commission members and or staff relevant to the application for the applicant's response. Three, to hear questions and or input from the public relevant to the aspects of this application only. Comments in favor of or opposed to the application, general comments or questions which are fielded by the chairman to the applicant for response if appropriate. Those people wishing to speak are requested to sign the petition on a sign-in sheet from the secretary. Those who wish to speak may do so upon recognition of the chairman, upon stating their name, address, and interest in the application. All speakers will be allowed a reasonable opportunity to be heard. Speakers may not speak again until all others have had the opportunity to speak. At this time, are there any conflicts of interest? Commissioner Zabros?
No. No.
Commissioner Kerwin?
Commissioner Olbers, none.
Commissioner Wall, none?
And Chairman Porterall, none. Okay. Do you have any problem with that? No, I do not. Okay, do we have any, well, first we need to call.
Okay, Town of Oxford County Zoning Commission, public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Oxford, Connecticut will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, 7:30 PM on the following. D-21-142, 400 Boulder Pass, owner and applicant, the residences of Quarry Walk LLC. Attorney Dominic Thomas, 315 Main Street, PO Box 313, Connecticut. Public hearing will be held in the main meeting room of the SB Church Memorial Town Hall, located at 46 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, and remotely via Zoom. Interested persons can join the Zoom meeting via the following. It's the joining information. At the meeting, interested persons to be heard and written communications received. Copy of the proposals on file in the planning and zoning office and the town clerk's office, located at 46 Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut. Dated at Oxford, Connecticut, this 13th day of Oxford, 2021. By Jessica Mel, coordinator, planning and zoning commission.
Okay, do we have any other correspondence?
I believe there was an email, if I'm not mistaken, from Tom Hayes, dated 9/16/21, statement regarding the subdivision.
Okay, you read that to the record, please.
Sure. It's an email from Tom Hayes to Jessica Canal and CC'd a few different people. It's a re-subdivision application email. The individual lots are required because of financing. There will be different banks on each residential building, similar to the rest of Quarry Walk. As we have always shared, this project is much too large for any single bank to finance. We were unsure of the details on the residential when we did the first subdivision for the 11 lots years ago. We knew that we most likely would need this re-subdivision, but didn't want to do it until we were sure what the banks would require in the exact building details and lot lines. 11-C is to keep the walking trails separated out of the ownership and liability of the residential lots. And of course, the fire regulation increased our need for different banks on 11B. As we have always said, this is standard and required for such a large and financially complex project. Anything else, sign on Haynes, from Haynes.
This will come back.
Yes. She gets the confirmation for. Oh, okay. She asked me to listen to any motions, maybe, just to, keep note of this.
Okay.
Until she gets back.
Then you turn down to Thomas, Tony Thomas, the mentioned, Jeremy Connecticut representing the applicant. For the record, the notices and the photograph of the sign posting were presented to Jessica and have been turned in. The notices requiring Tom's email, which was requested by Jessica to give an explanation as to the purposes of the subdivision. Simply states the point. Succinctly states the point of the subdivision. I want to remind you that back in the village center mixed use district was passed, specifically the condition was put in for re-subdivisions to address the concern that was, not the concern, so to address the necessity that was coming about at that point in major commercial projects, major retail projects, to divide it up into lots so that the financing can take place. This is exactly what's happening here. If you look at the plan, this is the building that exists right now. This is all lot 11. It's going to be divided into this building. This is a lot that houses the existing building, a lot with the proposed building that has already been approved. And then it's time to the walking trail is going to be separate, and as he said in the email, for liability, but also keeping the walking trail separate in that situation and keeping it separate, because this may very well be private, also makes it easier for financing. That's it. It's a simple thing. The whole property, both the residents of Quarry Walk and Oxford Town Center are covered by the facilities in agreement. So there is no access. That's basically it. And the other thing was we were thinking about putting a sign down by Fritz's that said, "Come to Starbucks at Market 32. We have no queue." When it's not part of this application.
Okay, let's start with Mr. Curl.
Did we already do this once before?
We did it with lot 5 on the separate financing, and they separated out lot 5 for separate financing. Yeah, that was on the actual town center.
The only, I don't know if you recall this, we came up with some language that we wanted in the approval, basically binding any, let's say that heaven forbid there's some kind of business failure and banks foreclose and suddenly we get ownership. We wanted a provision that binds the entire, we don't want it to change, we wanted it to stay under the approvals and, the same.
Well, there was a requirement way that went for a reciprocal easement, which there has been put on it, and there's a uniform maintenance agreement. Those were the requirements that even if something happens, even if properties, even if lots are sold, the best, and the same thing applies here. The best example I can give you is the project I have where a major national is going to buy the lot. And this often happens with hotels. They don't add these. So they're bound now by the reciprocal easement agreement and the uniform maintenance agreement. And I believe the requirement, I gotta go back, this is a few years ago. I believe the requirement, Tom, you could be wrong, is that lot one, for instance, on the Oxford Town Center side, lot one does all the maintenance. That they take care of all the maintenance together for all the lots. Lot one is market.
I remember, we had some specific language that you guys agreed to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's it.
Yeah, for the record, Tom Haynes, principal of the residence party. Yeah, John, you're correct, that this would be subject to the exact same language. Because lot 11 already is, and we would expect this subdivision would have the same requirement, because you are right. Yep.
Anyone else have a question for the applicant? Does anyone else? have the applicant? Dan,
No, I'm good, Pat, thanks.
hey, is there anyone in the audience that has a question for the applicant, either in person or online? You're none. I have a question. You don't mind? Okay. The continuation of the walking trail, little dogleg. How come that's not being separated out? Okay, all right. From there to,
That's,
on the Rapowski property, which will be bringing in.
yeah, in other words, it's on here right now. You don't know, you don't know. It's not part of the, yeah, it's not part of the village center mixed use district at this time.
so. I don't see any problem. No one's got any question. I mean, this is strictly a financial issue. You know, between mortgages and construction loans. So, do we have a motion prepared?
I had.
We have to vote on it.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I'm checking. To see
you did get that.
do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I know. Did we only do one subdivision?
Yeah. Outstanding. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Got that on tape.
I know, at least it, hopefully.
But Dominic said we had 14-day appeal period after the notice. So is that now? Just. Our situation is that our current construction finance needs to be refinanced by the end of the year, before the 2031. And Dominic said that if we have a meeting on the 7th, there's a 15-day appeal period. I don't know if the bank's attorney is going to say they won't close under that appeal period.
So that still gets you.
I mean, I know, we're under the 22nd.
That's all. The appeal period is from the date of publication. And Jess is always very good at getting.
So even if you got a publication on the night to really Christmas.
That's all, we're pushing it to so far out that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll move that we accept and approve. That guy's name. The guy over at 132. We approve C21-142, application for a subdivision under Article 6, Section 6.2.4, favorably, with a condition that the applicant abides by all representations made by his counsel and representative at today's hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Stay. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much, really.
All right.
Now go out and get it done.
If you want traffic, there's just gonna call.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna go to traffic signals.
I'm just gonna tell you right, that you couldn't remember where she was. I know how to get some trouble. Good night.
Good night.
Moving on to the regular meeting business. Okay, do we have any future public hearings? Okay. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Yes,
None.
agenda.
Audience of citizens, is there anyone in the audience that wants to talk about something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Old business matters on which the public hearing was held. We have proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. Where do we stand with that?
We're gonna continue to table that, because I think we're talking about a little bit, but I think it's a late night to do that tonight. I think we want to just kind of wait a minute.
We gave ourselves an extension, yeah.
I'm sorry, I skipped over our correspondence. It's,
Why you got a second?
actually,
No,
just note that you don't have to read it. You don't have to read it for you. A state document. I will educate them prior to- or the statutory.
Here all night.
Yeah. So, no.
Okay.
All right, under correspondence, A, the CFPCA quarterly newsletter is in your packet and available in the planning and zoning office for anyone who wants to see it. Okay, the letter from the Department of Public Health, the statutory requirements for project with the drinking water, watershed, or aquifer protection areas is in your packet and available in the office for anyone who wants to read it.
Is that what I'm supposed to say? Okay. Okay, I appreciate that.
Just to make it easy, I move that we supplement the record and have those added into the record. In their printed form.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. That's okay.
It's a word. It's great for all. It's a word. It's good for all of us. Okay, let's see, if we can cover that. Just cover that. Okay, P1, that we've already covered that. Okay. Public hearing closed on 7, Commission Massive extension for action, that's the same one. Okay, other matters. Mountain Village Estates, Meadowbrook Estates, boundaries requested, what have we done?
Steve is not prepared.
No.
To go out there,
So Mountain Road Estates, yeah, we're gonna have Jim Gallagher do that.
but
You're releasing the bond on that, right?
I'm not.
Well, I mean,
releasing the
we
bond.
are, right?
The commission is.
So,
We have a bond release request, and we want a final inspection.
Yes.
normally we have Jim Gallagher do that.
Have we notified Jim?
No, because the commission asked, and I'm not putting, I'm
Oh,
just
I get it,
saying,
I
the
get it.
commission asked Steve to do it. And so, as at the last meeting, we referred it to Steve,
Okay,
and Steve didn't feel comfortable
Yeah, there's
doing it because of the size of the project and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to say, oh yeah, Jim, go out there and do it, because our budget is so slim,
so.
and then you guys,
Okay,
the main thing is the walls. The stone
okay, I
walls.
would take a, motion to, send, our Jim Gallagher, our engineer, out to review, Long Road Estates.
For the bond rules.
Please.
I make that motion.
Well, second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
There's a question that it wasn't supposed to be released by November 11th. It was for a year we put it on, I think it was last November 2020. we put it on. And this was for a year, to 10%, and now it's supposed to be released November 11th, 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure the dates. But if, if that's the case, have we reduced this one?
yes, it was
Yeah,
reduced
we're
to,
in the maintenance
we're
bond.
in a maintenance bond.
Okay.
This
So-
is the final.
So this is the final. So as soon as, he looks at it, I think we can give recommend that this board is off the list. But, yeah, thank you for doing that. Okay. Okay, Newfield Estates, 7 lot subdivision, approve and authorize the chairman and secretary of course to sign the bylaw. And this is a bond release.
Look at that. It's my one.
What was that?
So, the selectmen and the town meeting, they released the 5-year lease, and I think we talked about this last meeting.
The only easements, yeah.
And the deeds have already been transferred, so this is now magically become the wide open piece of land, no longer having a 7 lot subdivision. So this is the map that will be recorded. The other action that we'll take tonight is releasing the bond. It's an irrevocable letter of credit from Naugatuck Savings Bank, now Ion Bank, for $572,000. It's no longer necessary because they don't have anything formed. So we have a motion to authorize the chairman and the secretary to sign the map. We can get this recorded and we have this completed.
We need 2 motions. The first one.
Move the bylaw be executed by the appropriate commission staff.
I make a motion to release the bond.
Well, let's do the first motion or vote.
Do I have a second?
All in favor? Aye.
And you want to make that second motion now, please, would be a good time to release the.
Make a motion to reduce the bond.
Release the bond.
Release the bond, sorry.
To recommend the board of selectmen.
No.
That's ours?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Got the money.
Okay, we got that.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you. Finally, up our agenda is what we
We'll sign it after the table's clear.
Who seconded the bond release?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we have this thing about B-09-116, lot 11, Whittlesville Industrial Park, applicant owner, Civil LLC, 297 Ocean River, Connecticut, extension request, discussion and possible action.
That's, Kevin and I talked about this, and, yeah, that's civil one, but, but anyway, Emily from Civil One is sick and she couldn't come tonight. So we have a thing going on with wetlands, so we can bring it up at the next meeting.
So I'll entertain motion to table B-09-1061 next meeting. Well, we took it off the table. Okay.
Let's make it, I'll move to table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Under new business, we want to schedule a public hearing.
None.
Okay, new business other.
There's a show cause hearing for 36-40 Hunter's Mountain Road.
My name is Scott Kimmer. I'm here for, it's a lot split. It's a 2-lot split, and there's a cease and desist that they gave me, so.
Scott, hold on for a second. Usually we're going to do similar what we did at wetlands. And the zoning enforcement officer will present, and then we're going to ask if you have that for you to sign and tell us what you're going to do now. See about that, that would be best. Thanks.
So you guys have pictures in front of you of a piece of property that was clear cut. And you have a letter from Jim Gallagher that dated November 15th, attorney here, so that should be read in the record. There's color pictures. Sure.
So I have a letter dated November 15th, 2021 from Maps Zone Engineers. Was received November 15th via email. Decision for solid dividends. Chairman, Oxford and Wetlands, Albert, Oxford Road, Oxford, Connecticut, support for an 8 regarding 40 Mountain Road, Oxford, Connecticut. Dear Mrs. Dividends. Gas and Young Engineers, Perform a site inspection with the zoning enforcement officer and the zoning enforcement officer at the above referenced site. The subject parcel is approximately 10.6 acres. No application for development has been submitted for any wetlands nor planning zone conditions. At the time of inspection, over 5 acres of land have been cleared of all vegetation. No erosion controls were observed. Connecticut's deep regulations require that all projects, which include 5 or more acres of disturbance, securing general permit for the discharge of stormwater into water and wastewater from construction activities and submit a stormwater pollution control plan prepared by a qualified professional. No registration nor pollution control plan has been provided for the site. The parcel is dissected with a wet area that could be considered an intermediate water course. The status of this wet area should be confirmed by a certified soil scientist. A large stockpile of wood chips located adjacent to the driveway entrance. This is no anti-tracking pad was in place. It is the writer's understanding that a cease and desist order has been issued by the town of Oxford Planning Zone Department on the site. Our recommendation is that the above listed issues be resolved before said order is lifted. If you should have any questions, please contact me at 203-314-8041. Sincerely, James Gallagher, Aston Engineers, Town Engineer of Oxford.
So if you flip the page, where I am, that's just a detail of the violations that I came up with. Keep in mind, this is a major clear of no permits. And Mr. Gallagher is saying to clear over 5 acres. So I have nothing on file. That's a major regrading, so that requires a special exception right there. And Article 4, you go to page 4, says it was a clear cut, you have to apply a special exception. Full neighbor building or structures, shall be reconstructed, it says all without the zoning application. I have absolutely nothing on file. The silt fence itself was installed inadequately, it's not holding my check at the other day. So we did do that. He came into my office, said he wanted to do a lot split. I said, you can do that, and you have enough property. I never told him to clear cut it, ever. The whole entire property was clear cut. Apparently, the applicant could not get his machine in there to do his perk test. I guess he tried to go in there with the cutter, and I guess he just took the whole thing to go get his perk test. Pete has pictures of his property where they went in and just cut a small path. Why this was clear cut, I have no idea. But I have no permits on file. I have nothing. So he's got to go to DEP. He has to get his wetland approval. I think we should either start the fine process really soon and/or have him come in for a special exception for the excavation first, and then the subdivision. Because he's doing one interior lot, as opposed to 4 houses. The slopes and grades are really steep, and he got within 50 feet of the property line, which our regulations call for him to replant. So we have a tree guy from the state of Connecticut going out there to figure out exactly what he cut and where it's got to be replanted. So he's got wetlands, and he also has Connecticut DEP to go to, and then us. So I don't know what you guys, but
Oh, no, I just had a question about the cease and desist letter. It helps me understand it. It says that he will be fined $150 per day. It's on for each day that the violation continues. I assume the violation is the clearing of the land. So how can you reconstitute the land?
I don't know what's.
Or I misunderstand.
No, this is a standard letter, he put a silt fence up, but, you know, we want to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt and see what he's gonna do, what he's gonna say.
I think one of the things that I talked with the CEO about this, one of the things, how do you reconstitute land? You have to go and replant. And some of the trees that were taken down were part of the state forest. So there's a whole nother procedure going on with the state arborists and making determinations on what was cut. So there may be required a planting plan to be part of anything that we do here, or part of a special exception, and that having attended the wetlands meeting, they've requested that a soil scientist go out and re-flag the wetlands and compare Mr. Timmer's wetlands. And so you can literally restore a good percentage of the site. There's parts when you're building a house, you're gonna clear apart parts of the property, you build a house, you're not gonna clear cut it. Prudently address that. There's issues that Mr. Timmer can address why he did that. It's not an excuse, but it's, you sort of defend itself. But essentially, it's like, you've got to plant 20 of these trees, 25 of those. So there is a way of addressing that. I don't have a green thumb, so I would be killing the trees.
It's usually per day until the disposition of the case where you come up with some kind of restorative plan. So as long as that, basically it's to prevent people from, asking for, begging for forgiveness as opposed to coming in and asking for permission. But
Well, wetlands did was, they thought it was important to have a soil scientist to do something, so they didn't immediately start assessing the fine. And that was a discussion I had with these wetlands officers first, and we felt that it was more appropriate to find out what the work, and maybe make some efforts to the best way in improving and correcting the site versus, because you could, and then at the next meeting, assess what the progress has been made correcting things, and then at that point, you could always assess the fine. Just that was their me.
So if I understand it correctly, the potential fine wouldn't begin until the applicant, until the person has been notified of the issues, such that no further damage is being done. But the fines wouldn't start until he's been notified, at which point, if he then doesn't improve the site per the plan, that's when the fines would begin.
The difficulty is there's no plan.
No, but I'm saying, once a plan has been identified, assuming that no further destruction occurs, that once the plan is determined, whatever that plan is, and given to the person, that the finding wouldn't start until the plan is in hand, and we see action occur, and improvements occur. And if none occurs, that's when we start.
Well, it says here,
if council could just briefly explain 8-12, so upon the violation, the fine starts, it's a day-to-day fine. Once the violation, so there's a notice of violation for everything except the erosions, which is on day one.
Right.
That fine will start technically, now we can assess that fine starting at the date the notice of violation is given, 10 days for all the others. So technically, they start running at that point.
which is, would have been 4 or 5 days.
There's two components to what the show clause hearing is. First of all, finding that the show clause hearing, show clause is appropriate, the order that we put out is appropriate. We find that, and the second part is saying, do we want to implement the fines and the penalties? And that's two separate items, and he measures both by saying, is there an issue? If there's an issue, then you get to the second one and say, absolutely correct.
The trial is gonna, they have to find them guilty first, and then the sentencing, so we can put the sentencing before the actual fine.
Well, my thing is, I gave the cease and desist, and the only thing he has done is with the soil, that's all. But it says in there is submit plans, and even on his plan, it says he must consult with town officials before doing anything. You know, and also.
That doesn't remove the violation.
Correct.
That's just his corrective action. And Steve, if I can just back up, just to make the record clear, this property is owned by an LLC.
It's Kim Enterprise, I don't know if I gotta check the assessors, sorry. Kim Enterprise, 35 South Bend, Waukesha.
LLC. And the principal agent for the LLC, so we know we have correct person. for
Yes,
that.
he is here. So it's just, if you guys ever have time, just go over and take a look at it. I couldn't believe it. You know, and also our fees here, we can charge, we have the opportunity to charge them triple, which is either up to you or to me, it says here. That's something we'll have to discuss. The open space is $7,500 a lot in our subdivision regulations. regulations. So we can triple that and make it 21,000, whatever you guys want, I don't care. But it's either we take this deed open.
Could you just tell the commission how you first learned of it?
I drove up there, I heard about it from a neighbor actually called, and Scott did come in, and I explained to him, I said, you gotta go through the system, you can't just. And I went up there, and his excuse was, the machine was up there, so we just did it, and the guy who clear cut is on the DEP's radar for doing this in a couple other counties. So the guy went in and just,
Who would you go up there?
Mike Hurd, then I went there with James Gallagher. And Mike again. So I don't know if anybody here went up there, but you did, you saw it? I mean, you had one pipe in your yard, you got a little machine come down, right?
Yeah, I had seven,
I don't understand.
7 or 8 pipe in my driveway. You don't need to clear cut the way you like that.
Listen, this is, you know, like I said, DEP's in on it, Connecticut Forestry Department's in on it, and that's wetlands.
So when you say the guy who clear cut, is
It's
that
a
different than?
Yeah, Mr. Taylor didn't clear cut, he hired somebody to do it.
Okay.
But we did, the tree warden from the state said we've had this guy on the radar before for doing certain things, going into the clear cut properties. So he's facing the fines, what I told, it's like 15 to 25,000. Now, Mr. Kimmer, the guy who clear cut,
But any fines we assess, if any, would be on, on this person.
Is that because he's the owner under our regulations, he's the responsible party for what happens on his property and the contracts that he engages for those services?
Correct.
Basic violation.
Correct.
The owner is Kim Properties LLC.
And,
Vegetation also.
Well,
Clean up vegetation and everything.
I would never perk test next to Mount Laurel Ledge anyway, so that's just a common sense thing, but, you know. The state is really hot on the trees that were cut. There was a guy out there measuring every single one, painting it orange, shooting a linear feet. And he was out there for half a day.
What are you doing about it?
Was that? He wants to do one interior lot, which I told him we can do. I never told him to about it, and then I think he has a code proposed like 3 or 4 more houses. But there's some wetlands he has to get from first. So apparently the wetlands map was inaccurate, so we hired, or Inland Wetlands hired their own on Mr. Kimmer's.
I
Scott agreed.
think the characterization is accurate. We want to verify where the wetlands are.
Yeah, whatever it is.
The map could be accurate, but we're not sure.
Is there any reason to believe that he was under the impression that he had the right to own the lot?
He came into my office and he told me what he was doing, and it even says on his map, he has to consult wetlands before any activities is taking place. I would never say that. He said, I said that in wetlands, which is just a wrong statement. I would never say that.
when did you turn those?
I have to check my notes, maybe, end of September, maybe? I have to check, but I pulled a lot from Crystal, like you said. Just to, it's a big, you really need to see it. It's- Are they all along the road, it slopes down, so you can't cut there, so that's 50 feet, you gotta replant. Right?
Are there any other specific questions?
I just like Mr. Carey out, and once again, specifically each regulation is violated, I think you laid that out.
I got it, yeah, it's in your packet too, it says.
It's just go through it, section.
Oh, you want to use now?
Yes, just give us a brief clarification as to each one, how it applies and how he violated that, and how he's alleged to have violated that particular section.
Right.
We have to understand, you just focus on each particular.
So if you go to page 4 in the packet I gave you, it says no land or building structure shall be reconstructed, extended, altered until we have a approved zoning application, which we do not have. Then it goes down to all zoning applications, what they have on it, for a site plan, which I do not have.
That section.
That's Article 4, approval of fees. And then we go to Article 5, site plan, which I do not have, which goes to Article 4.
Article 5 or Article 11? If you look at page 1 of the packet.
I'm sorry, Article 11, site plan.
It's on page 5.
Yes, page 5.
You reviewed the records of the Oxford Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yep.
Found nothing.
I found absolutely not. The state reviews. And then it goes to Article 12, soil erosion sediment control plan. Which I've seen on the plan, it's in, but it's, it's planted with a shovel, not a ditch with a machine. Or at least one section was done by hand.
Was a soil erosion plan ever approved by you?
No, no, sir. No.
And that's a requirement before any
That's
activity.
vice chair, yes, that's
So, I'm not a vice chair. Okay.
whatever.
I don't think we have.
Whatever, yeah.
I think it's.
So, and then also if you go into the last page, approval of major regrading. That whole entire section applies to that problem.
And that was never approved.
No. No, I have nothing. I have nothing. So.
And can you just, with regard to the regrading, how does that apply? He actually moved the topography, he altered the topography.
Not yet, but he still has to stump it, there's going to be a lot of big holes and some rocks, we developed some wood chips, so I mean, there's slopes that are a 2-to-1 slope that I think are inadequate along the road and maybe the driveway. I don't have any totals to compare it to, we're waiting to get those, to see what was there
That's
before.
my concern as it relates to the actual violation. So he's not allowed to affect the topography, the actual grading, the slope of the property without an approval.
Correct.
And he's actually done that.
Yes,
He's with the
Yes.
excavator, even in.
yes, he's put in his driveway already, I don't know how much fill he's taking in that fast, so, but you can see the fill. Which, it's not a problem, I just don't have,
And you were able to observe that there was enough fill moved, enough earth moved that it would constitute regrading.
yeah, no, absolutely, even along the road with the street line, it says you have to, there's a percentage that you can do, you have to replant it, if it goes down, if it's level, fine, but it goes down, so.
I don't have any questions. I don't know. Any other commissioners have any questions?
I maybe moves, see what happens with DEP, if inlands wetlands. And I'll just continue to find and see what happens until his engineer gets together with Jim Gallagher. And it's in our regulations too, that the applicant has to, you can request that he pays our fees for the engineer, which I think is adequate.
So when you see you'll continue to find, he's been being. found.
Well, if I'm gonna go fast in 10 days, it would be just yesterday, so. But I need a full entire site plan, cuts, fills, topos, wetlands, and we have nothing. It's just not, we have nothing.
I think what the commission has to consider is refer Steve's background, and if you don't have any other questions, I think that as an outline of what's next, and if you don't have any other questions, then it's the time here for all.
And that's where we're at. There's no other questions from the commission. And, sure, please.
Scott Cameron, 13 South Drive, Monaco. Well, it first started, I had all the wetlands flagged, soil scientist before I did it. So that was done because I know better not to dig in a wetland or within a wetland and all of that. I had a tree guy come in and clear some paths so I could dig some deep holes. It's kind of a difficult site because it's very tree, and just to get a mini excavator into where you had to be, we cleared some paths, and I couldn't get it. I mean, it's not an easy site to get a machine. Normally, I don't have to clear anything at all. I just ride in between the trees with a little mini and dig some holes to find test holes with septic systems. I did some houses down the road. That's what I did. I didn't have to clear any trees. I didn't have to do nothing. It was, they were far enough apart. We can get a mini in and do what you had to do. So I had them come out and just clear, a path so I could get a machine. Well, we did that. And I went through and I got to some areas, but then I couldn't. I just did a little path across the front of it. And I wanted to get down in the back to dig some test holes for the interior lot. I figured I could probably, once I got down in, off the road, I could go down in the back to dig these deep holes for the interior lot. Well, I couldn't do it, so the guy had to come back again, and he's bringing these big machines in. So he's like, look, I won't be able to come back here again for 4 or 5 months. He says, the way things are now, and this and that. I said, well, I mean, without digging the deep holes, you don't know what you have, what you can do. So, I had the surveyor survey, I had the soil scientist flag the wetlands, so I knew I wasn't in a wetland. And I did the minimum to get, off the road where the driveway, where the interior driveway lot goes in the back. So I did, the minimum there to get in. But when he came back again, it was like, what do you do? So he's bringing big machines in. They're not little machines to clear the land. So I said, well, go ahead and clear this. What am I gonna do? Prior to that, I went and seen Steve, or right in that same time that they were doing the survey and doing flagged all the wetlands. And I said, look, I'm doing a lot split. It's what I did down the road. I did a lot split down the road. Luckily there, I was able to bring a mini in and get to where I needed to go, and it wasn't a problem. This site, it's got topo that goes down, and it's difficult. And I did, when I went down in the back interior lot, I cleared a path, and I got a machine down, and I actually had the surveyors flag all the areas where I dug the deep holes. So I knew I was in the right area, because you can't just go into an open piece of land and guess, is it here, is it there? They flagged all the areas, the flags are still there. They put 4 stakes in the ground on anywhere where we dug a hole, there's 4 flags. If you walk the property, you'd see, so I made sure that I wasn't in the wetland when I dug any deep holes. All right, so that's why it got clear cut, because the guy came back a second time, and I was, what was I gonna do? You know what I mean? I mean, how do you, I can't come to the town and say, hey, here's the split, without knowing where your deep holes are and where you're gonna put your houses. So the A2 survey, the inlet, the soil scientist, he flagged all the wetlands, and the survey was done before I went into the property with any machines at all. So it was the nature of the land to get down in there that made it hard for me. So sometimes you just gotta make a decision, hey, and I was under the impression that long as you don't clear all the land and you're not digging up the stumps, that you don't have to put the soil and erosion in until you start digging up the stumps and all of that. And that's what it's been in the past. That's what I've always done. And I've been doing it for 30 years. So, I came to the town, I told them what I was doing, and I know it was just a 2-lot split that I was doing. And it's what I did down the road. Luckily, I was able to get in. This site was hard. Even when I went down, I went down here with the machine, down and through here to dig the holes, and I dug some holes over here. They weren't too good. It was even difficult to get the machine back out. So my machine, I had to leave the machine down in there. And that's when I was like, I gotta have the guy come back, or what am I gonna do? Because I needed to get over here and dig more holes, because these holes were no good where they staked out in this interior lot. And my niece wants me to build a house for her down here, and they want this lot. So it was the most important one for me to do, because she wants me to build her a house. So that's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to cause more problems than, it seems like it has become a bigger problem than I thought it would. And the only area that was graded at all is the driveway here to the interior lot. I wish I had easel with me, I don't. But this driveway right here is the only place we did any kind of excavation right here to just get off the road. Because, you can't have machines in the middle of the road. So that was the only thing that was excavated here. Nothing else was excavated. There were deep holes, all where you could see the deep holes are. Those are the deep holes that were dug. So I'm going to split it into 2, later subdivide this into 3 lots. That was my thinking. But for now, I was going to split it into 2, a simple lot split, and build 2 houses. This is an A2 survey that's done. The soil scientists, wetlands, were all flagged in here. And that's where we're at, I guess. I believe you guys, Steve, I believe you want to read. You don't need it?
No, we're submitting, we're gonna get a different map. Like I said, I never told you that.
No, you never told me to clear cut. I'm not saying you told me to clear cut. I'm not saying that. Let's just, you didn't tell me to clear cut it, and you didn't tell me that I had to go to wetlands or any of that. I just came to you, I asked you about the split, we looked at the regulations, because it was an interior lot, and Steve said, oh, I think you need 5 acres for an interior lot. He helped me look at the regulations, and I said, okay. He said, oh, no, you don't. You only need whatever it was, 3 or whatever. 'Cause I'm trying to do this, and I want to check with him, because he knows better than I do. So that's what I did. He gave me the information I needed. I went back to my people, and I said, look, this is what we were gonna do. And right now, just to clarify, it's about a little over 4 acres that was cleared, not 5, not 6, not 7. It's a 10.5 acre parcel, and a little over 4 was cleared. And normally I don't want to clear the land before I know what I can do with it. Why would I want to pay to clear the land if I can't do anything with it? You know what I'm saying? So it's not something I want to do, spend money, before I know what I can do. But I had no choice to dig the test holes to know what you could do with the land. So that was what I was up against.
Does anybody on the commission have any specific questions for the applicant? Who took the timber?
Who took the timber? The guy who clear cut it.
So he reaped a pretty good windfall. Obviously, that's valued in timber.
I don't know, I'm not sure what he did, but I'm not in the lumber business, so, I don't want the lumber. So I want him to take it with him, so he's doing me a favor by taking it.
So we have these pictures here. We have to take a look. So you're saying that you did all this clear cutting because you needed to get it.
Even with all the clear cutting that was done, I had a hard time getting into the holes and digging the test holes that are needed in order to develop the land.
So do you recognize this picture here? It's 11, 10, 21 MH.
Yes, I do.
All right, that's your property, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, you see, what's this?
That's just tracks, for the guy to get the, and we might have driven down it with an excavator to dig the deep holes that were done out the way.
And how much would you estimate on either side of that is open and clear cut without any tracks in it? How much space in terms of feet from? It's hard to estimate.
On the side of this?
On the side of that path that you've identified.
No tree stumps were cleared there at all.
What's that?
That's a tree stump.
Yeah, what's that there? It's a tree stump.
Yeah. No, we didn't clear any. We didn't clear, I didn't take any tree stumps out at all on the whole property, except for we would just drive in on the top.
Because you're clear cut that entire area.
Yes.
And you didn't have an approval for that.
No.
And you're saying that you clear cut it because you couldn't get an excavator.
Well, it's a very difficult, the topo, it was very difficult.
An excavator can't climb that grade. It looks
Well,
like.
no, it's not that, it's the trees, the way they were. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't clear more than I had to, so that I'm not saying. But when he came back, the first time I cleared the minimum, you know what I'm saying, to get to the 3 areas on top. And I thought I could, and I did get a path down because he brought a little brusher in, and I started with a brusher, and it just, I don't know. I don't know that you would, I don't know what permit you would get until you know what you can do with it. Like I would have gotten any permit that I needed if I went to, when I was in your office, and you said, hey, you need a
That's a
permit.
lot.
I don't know what permit I would need. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. I would.
Mr. Kimmer, where's the map that you submitted to wetlands, the one that I saw that says you have to see the Wetlands Commission before?
This is the same map that you.
I saw a map in Mike's office that said you need to see the
Well,
Wetlands
listen,
Commission because, time out, take it easy. I saw it the other day, and you came in my office, I said, it's a lot split, I have to bring it to the commission, were my exact words to you. And I said, don't do any work up there, because it says it on the map that I saw. and Mike has the copy of
Okay,
it. But that's not the one you're submitting to me right now. I want the one with the new date on it that says you had a CSO prior to, let me finish, prior to doing any excavation up there. You clear cut the whole entire property. You know what? It's the
Clear
worst.
cut 4 out of 10 and a half acres.
It's the worst devastation I've ever seen on property ever. Your sloping grade, your silt fence, your wetlands, you created huge crevices and pits and there's water running off it. Scott, you've been doing this for 30 years.
30 years I've been doing it. And I've never had to clear land to get rid of the wetlands.
So I just have, please, want to stop this back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm just fine.
I know, but it just, that's not our purpose here. Okay, we're talking about, the mitigation plan.
I don't even know if we've gotten that yet.
I don't know, I guess may I inquire of Mr. Cameron? Mr. Cameron, have you had an opportunity to how you're going to address the situation up there? I know there was some discussion with wetlands about how you're going to approach it, but have you come up with a plan on how you're going to at least stabilize the site and mitigate any of the damages that have happened?
Well, Steve had contacted me to put up some silt fence. So we put up the silt fence and he's asked me to do with a machine, but we have a cease and desist. So I don't know that we can run machines. So I'm not really sure what you guys want me to do.
I told you to get a machine up there in a ditch witch and do it with the machine, so don't put words in my mouth.
After the fact, right.
So you gotta.
So we can run a machine under a cease and desist up there? I mean, I'm asking because I want to know, I didn't want to run any machines up there with a cease and desist. I don't know, I mean, what is the cease and desist? Do you do improvements or do you not?
I think you have to do the work under whatever the direction of the zoning enforcement officer or the wetlands enforcement officer.
Yeah.
There's many problems there. The other thing is that some of the things that are happening are outside of our control. I know DEP is involved, the state arborist is involved, trees are cut in the state forest, so there's significant things that happen up there that aren't our authority to deal with that are going to cause other things to happen. But I know there was, at least in wetlands, just how are we going to approach it? And at wetlands, there was no automatic decision because we weren't sure if the wetlands flag was correct. There was a note on the map that the zoning enforcement just alluded to that the inquiry should be made with all town officials before we start work. So, kind of standard things we see on that.
I want to just comment and trying to get this moving. I don't know if we're going to resolve this tonight.
No, I'm sorry.
I think the cease and desist has to stay, I'd hate to create a situation where, like I said before, I mean, beg for forgiveness as opposed to permission. We have the cease and desist in effect, which I think, if there's something specific that he has to do with regard to a mitigation to prevent any significant erosion, I think, obviously that can be handled by the zoning enforcement officer. And, at the very least, we can give the zoning enforcement officer the authority to deal with that. But I think we're gonna need to see one, we haven't even touched, I would assume that he trespassed on state lands and cut the trees.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new survey yet, so I don't know.
So we're still at a point where we need more information. I think there were allegations that the town property also that was.
Well, the road frontage was cut, and you can go up on the slope, but you can't go down.
So I don't think we're in a position, I mean, we've kind of framed the issue, but I think we'll have to continue this.
Oh, I definitely.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, when I give a cease and desist, I will call the applicant, we'll get together, well, this is what you have to do. And soil erosion is immediately. So I said, get a machine in there, a ditch witcher machine, and put your silt fence up and dig it down deep. I did tell him that because, that's the right way to do it, not by hand.
understanding is soil erosion. Even when the cease and desist, you must do.
Yeah, that's, so I told Mr. Kimmer to get a
That's the way
machine.
the statute is written.
The way-
Everything else is 10 days.
Right, exactly.
And I think that clearly was the approach that zoning enforcement officer, because there was such a dangerous problem with potential erosion, because you could put a site and the weather we had, of course, everything's soaked, the water isn't going into the ground, it's just gonna run off and destroy stuff. So that was immediate. So to Commissioner Kerwin's point, yes, this probably should be continued. Yes, there should probably have the zoning enforcement continue take steps to mitigate things, and Mr. Kimmer should comply with that order, and in December or December 7th meeting, we'll have a better picture of where we're at. There are other things that are going on up there. I was informed by the inland wetlands officer that the state was out trying a number of trees that they lost, so there's all kinds of stuff going on, so it's unfortunate, but how do we remedy it and get to a place where we can stabilize that subject?
And I think that should be the immediate, so possibly this. We can just close the hearing now with the proviso that the zoning enforcement officer can, well,
We actually recess this.
read that right there.
And we'll recess it, we work with the zoning enforcement officer to get the erosion control done. Okay. Then move forward with, because we have to confirm, we need something from wetlands. There's suspect of the flagging for the wetlands.
There's a question on it.
So that it's questionable. There's a lot of things going on here, so we certainly can't make any decisions.
And to Mr. Kemmer, we certainly can't make any decisions. The wetlands is waiting for more information before they make decisions. So right now, for anyone to say, go do X, Y, and Z is that we're putting the cart in front of the horse.
So.
Other than that erosion.
Right.
Yeah, those are erosions immediate, always immediate, and that was zoning enforcement's office, our beginning.
So during this whole time period, are funds continuing to accumulate?
Because they haven't been assessed yet, but the potential is there.
Okay. And that's, okay, so we need a motion, I guess, to, recess the show cause hearing and authorize the zoning enforcement officer to continue to pursue the resolutions as proposed.
Yes.
So move.
Okay, discussion. We're out of order. Oh, okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, need a motion if we wish to impose fines and penalties as authorized by town ordinance.
If I could just, for discussion, I'd like to bring that up for discussion. We can do that. We can get some clarity. We don't need to do that at this point, seeing if we still have the show cause here.
Correct.
That would be, I think, at the end of the show cause.
If we were closing show clause here,
Okay,
then we make a decision on that.
all right.
Kind of left that open, ended here, but having the hearing continued. I think we can make a decision at that point, December meeting, or December 7th, or whatever, conclusion.
And then we're going to continue to our first meeting in December.
Yes, December 7th.
I don't know if that was in the motion or not, but it should be.
Not to December 21st, December 7th.
This is still in discussion, but that's correct.
Yes.
What I would throw out there, and I didn't think was appropriate for me to address this directly to Mr. Kimmer, but I might not be here, so I'd like to just throw this out to the commission as well too. One of the things during the commentary, the dialogue, kind of, bothers me, I think it made a big difference was what could I possibly done, or what did I do wrong, or what, just things like that. And I would really hope that when we come up with this plan of action, that that Mr. Kimmer would be able to come back and maybe understand, I think he knows that they're cutting this in the right idea, show some remorse and take a little more of a proactive stance in terms of how can I work with the town and DE and everybody else to make this better. I think that's going to go a long way in the discussions that we have about fines and things like that. So I just wanted to throw that out.
I agree, and I think working with the CEO and as they work things out, that'll come through.
I think to Commissioner Consumer's point is that some of it is that cooperation is always important in these matters. And it's completely appropriate and if you're not going to be perfect. With the motion to recess on the floor, so we're going to vote that motion to recess in December.
Is it second?
It was second. Your discussion.
Okay, so move that motion. Opposed? Staying? Motion carries.
We already did that. This was, the discussion was on.
Yeah.
Which you had indicated.
I did that.
Yeah,
We didn't even know.
so we didn't even need that motion, right?
Okay,
Okay.
Steve, how extensive is your zoning enforcement?
There's a few things out there. I mean, I have another guy on 15 Old Church running a bunch of fill, probably 2,000 yards, sloped and graded within 20 feet of the property line, destroyed his neighbor's property, put pipes in, contractor's yard, junk everywhere.
Is there,
I have a cease and desist I gave my.
is there anything on there that can't wait till next?
We can wait.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw out Old Church Road.
Yeah, just to discuss, something like that, we would,
I know, but-
Authorize this, and see, it's a clear.
Well, what I was getting at is I wanted to get Jim Gallagher to go out there and calculate and do some stuff, so I need an okay from the commission. I would build the applicant. We would build the applicant.
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Jim Gallagher to go out to, property in Old Church Road, for some enforcement.
Thank you.
Purposes.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Staying? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, so you gotta pass like one enforcement.
Well, I got a lot of stuff, but it's late, so.
Okay, we don't have the minutes in our package, so,
No, you don't. We gotta pass on those minutes.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And motion.
Pass.
Remember, just, then when it's required.
So I have to go delete everything that I typed.
Going forward.
It doesn't have to be a transcript.
Jessica, where have you heard that before? Over and over.
I know, keep beating it into me.
Okay.
I mean,
Other business, we have none. Other business, we have the updates from the land use council.
I think I'll just jump to, lot 5 and lot 6, that has come to fruition. They combined lot 5 and 6. That lot now combined is a deed right of way. We talked about this, Commissioner Road.
The Riverside?
Yeah, Riverside. They actually have a deeded right of way that's 50 feet wide going into the property, so they have appropriate
It
access.
satisfies the-
Okay, it does, yeah. They have the appropriate frontage, but the deeded right of way is over on that other side that we talked about.
It's in feet.
Speed, yeah, so it's essentially, they'll just deal with the zoning enforcement officer, do the certificate of compliance, but that began last January, another thing on this.
Did he surrender he's gonna surrender the sub?
Yeah. Let's see, we're having the deeds, the deed merged the lot 5 and 6 together.
Okay, great. Any other items which to be concerned for discussion?
Just one question.
Oh, sorry.
The question I have is on the public hearing regarding the marijuana. It says public hearing closed on 9/7/21. Commission unanimously approved the extension for action by 11/6/21, which is today. What action did you take? Like, where do we stand? Why can't you just approve it?
Well, I think we're way deliberated now.
No, I'm just wondering why we didn't talk about it. Like, what are we, let the joint?
Yeah.
Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, sure, acknowledge that we pushed it off. We got next meeting. It's our own public hearing.
Sorry.
Yeah, you know,
Seven position you got.
Yeah.
I don't get my shot. Yeah.
Sorry.
Good job.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see, we'll leave us with a motion, Patrick. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
John, just so thank everybody that took my time and things like that, things that happened later. 15, that this is gonna be my last meeting. See what happens, coming up in December. But I'm flying down tomorrow to Florida to do the walkthrough, and I know December 21st, we will not be a property owner in Oxford, so I'm not be allowed to serve on the commission, so definitely before that.
So your closing is before that date.
Exactly.
Close it here down.
Exactly. So I'm gonna try and make it to the next one, but I'm gonna send you a note out to everybody. But, you know, you guys have been a blast, so. No, I'm gonna come back to that next week. You can say that.
Now I'm going to take a motion. Second?
Who made the motion?
All in favor?
Who made the motion? Brett?
It's a number.
And it's 10:18. Dan, if you're awake, we're adjourned.
You just woke-
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.